welcome to my basement. This is a video I've been asked to make so many times. This is our canning pantry, our larder, whatever you want to call it. This is where we keep all of our jars that we've canned up from our garden and even store-bought food that I've bought in bulk, things like that. This is all of our canning. I have some maple syrup that I need to put away, which is just where we store it. So for so long, I've been asked what are my favorite recipes, what are ones that I've tried and we've not liked, what are our favorites, what are ones that we've made over and over, ones we've never made again because they just weren't that great. So this is what that video is going to be about. It's just a little tour, kind of a review of the canning recipes that we've tried and we really liked and the ones that we haven't liked so much. I'm trying to go in order. So over here, it's kind of a little tour too. Over here we have all of our canned beans. So these are beans that you can buy in bulk. Dry beans are so much cheaper to buy in bulk than they are pre-canned, but I will say I do prefer store-bought canned beans over home canned beans. I only have a few jars of black beans left and a few jars of pinto beans left, just because I either feel like they're hard or they're mushy. Like I've not been able to get the consistency right no matter what I've tried. So I prefer store-bought over home canned beans. That's just me. That is our ham and bean soup. And I love doing this. Technically, you're not supposed to can ham, but I think in such a small amount, such as ham and bean soup, it's not that big of a deal. I'll show you what it looks like. So with this, I just packed the beans dry and then we canned them up. There's carrots, celery, chicken broth, ham, everything in here. I love having ready-made soups. This one wasn't exactly a recipe. What I do is I just canned it for meat. So for a quart with meat, it's 90 minutes, and that's how we gauged how long to process that. What I really love having on hand is homemade broth, and I can it in pint jars and I can it in quarts. So here's a pint and here's a quart of two different kinds of broth. I think this one's like beef and this one's chicken. I love home canned broth. I know exactly what's in it, and it's really easy. It's a very easy starter for pressure canning because you only have to can it for like 20 to 25 minutes. So it's not in there long. I know sometimes the length of operating a pressure canner for 90 minutes can be really daunting, but broth, super fast. It's a great beginner pressure canner recipe. I also love having meat canned. Here is some just homegrown chicken. This was what was left after parting out our butchered chickens. I put them in a roasting pan and we just kind of picked the meat off. That's what all of this is. And I ended up getting like, I think 6 quarts of just what would normally be discarded chicken carcasses. And these are store-bought meatballs that I canned. I love having meat on hand. We also have venison, which is great. I do pork for pulled pork and I do beef, ground beef and like shredded almost. So all canned meat is my favorite, especially because for like emergency preparedness, I want to know how to be able to clean out my freezers to can meat in case if there's an emergency, like a power loss or I don't know what level of conspiracy you are on, but something like that. So love knowing how to process my own meat and make it shelf stable. Hands down, one of my favorite things, French onion soup, okay? And I don't even use it for French onion soup because my kids wouldn't eat that. But put this in a roast or like a beef stew. It is so good. This was just like a ton of caramelized onions and beef broth and some seasonings, and it's amazing. I also really like to have meal in a jar type thing. So this is beef stew, but you can also do like a pot roast in a jar, a Mississippi pot roast in a jar. You can do meatloaf with potatoes and green beans. You can do so many meal in a jars, and this is just one that I like to have on hand for more of a single meal. So if my husband's at work, he can make one of these and put it in like one of those thermoses that stays hot, or if it's just me and one of the kids home, this would be enough for us versus opening 5 or 6 jars to make a big pot of stew. So these are great too. Home canned corn. Obsessed. I don't like freezer corn. I feel like it's like chewing on a balloon. I've never liked it. I've tried every way, and home canned corn stays so crunchy, and for some reason, still haven't figured it out, it has almost a smoky flavor to it. So it's not like store-bought canned corn, and it's not like freezer corn. It's just, it's its own thing, okay? It's its own thing, and I love it so much. I will never do freezer corn again. We love home canned corn. The smoky flavor is amazing. 3 types of salsas. This is a corn salsa. It's okay. This is a fire roasted tomato and pepper salsa. That one is delicious. I think that was a recipe from Pinterest. And then there's this really chunky one. I don't love the chunkier salsas. I'm gonna forever be doing like a roasted tomato one, the flavor of it is so much more intense, and it tastes more like a Mexican restaurant than a jarred up salsa. Is vegetable soup. This one's super easy. These were all just what was left from our garden harvest at the end of the year. So I had some dry beans. I didn't have quite enough to preserve by like vacuum sealing the jar. I didn't have enough. So I put them in here. There was some leftover corn, carrots, potatoes, green beans, onions, garlic, anything that was like left at the end of the year that I thought needed to be preserved. So any onions that I didn't think were gonna store very well, or garlic I didn't think was gonna store well, leftover potatoes from canning, all of that. Made a bunch of vegetable soup. If I want to add meat, I can, and then I just put water in it and let it make its own broth. And then we canned it for, I think it's 75 minutes for quarts for beans. So whatever your food is that takes the longest canning, that's what you can something like this for. I also canned up some of our sweet potatoes that were looking a little rough at the end of last year. I don't love canned sweet potatoes. This isn't something I would normally buy, but I knew in a pinch I could use it in place of something like pumpkin for pumpkin pie, or like in pumpkin muffins or something like that. We aren't like a yam family. We don't celebrate Thanksgiving or anything like that. So this is not something that I would normally buy, but I also didn't want them to go to waste, but I knew that they could be used in baking. So they're not that bad for that. Canning potatoes. This is also a very simple one. So these are actually purple potatoes, which purple potatoes are not probably my kids' favorite potato to eat fresh or even like fried up or baked. But we love these as canned potatoes. They hold up so well during frying. So like frying in lard, they get so crispy and they hold together really nicely, unlike a russet potato would. So I've also got, these are red skin potatoes, and these ones are just canned in plain water. I like using these for stews. So these are also red skin potatoes, but you can see on the bottom I have garlic and herbs. So I did these ones, garlic, herbs, potatoes, and then canned in water for the thyme for potatoes. And these are ones that I would more use on like our Blackstone when we're cooking like sausages or cabbage or something like that. Just kind of doing like a sheet pan meal outside, just cooked on the Blackstone. This is what I would use because they have some flavor to them. And then I have yellow potatoes. And I do can with the skin on, but I also sometimes don't. It's kind of on how I feel. Technically you're not supposed to, but we do sometimes. I like the yellow potatoes without the skin for like mashed potatoes or things like that. But these are also really good roasted. Love canned potatoes. Such a good way to use them up, make sure they don't go bad. I have our tomato products. And so this is my loaded veggie sauce. This again is just like the end of gardening season. So all of my leftover tomatoes, carrots, onions, and stuff that I just want to use up, especially tomatoes. I make a big batch of these loaded veggie broth, and I do a pint and a half because that's like what's perfect for our family size. I love this size for sauce, and this one's really thick. So I do pH test this and can it in the water bath. I have pressure canned it, and it does tend to siphon more because it is a thicker sauce. This is just my plain tomato sauce. It's pretty watery, so what I do is I freeze my tomatoes and then I mill them. And then I cook them down with salt and sometimes sugar if it's feeling really acidic. I like to balance my sauce out with whatever I need, salt, sugar, to get it to what we would want. We like a sweeter sauce. So this is what I would use. I don't love canned spaghetti sauce, so I'd rather saute onions and garlic and herbs and then add this later if I'm gonna make something like spaghetti or lasagna. That's just personal preference. I also pH test this instead of using a citric acid or lemon juice or anything like that. I can a lot that way where I just pH test things. So this is a pizza sauce and it's a lot thicker. Okay, that's just my recipe that I normally use, and I canned it and I pH tested it. And then this is super runny. Do you see that? This is one of those pizza sauce recipes. We don't love the flavor of this one as much as making the sauce for how we like things to taste. I personally just think that sometimes you have to make things that you're going to enjoy, and I like our homemade pizza sauce, so that's what I make, and I can it normal. I pH test it, make sure that it's, you know, nice and acidic, and this is what we use versus something like this that I'm gonna have to force us to use because it's just not the best. This is probably my most used canning item, and it's chili base. It's tomatoes, onions, peppers, all of the chili spices, and then later all we have to do is add like one of these, probably 2 pints or a quart of beans and a pint of ground beef that's also canned, and we have chili in like 5 minutes. So chili base, definitely something I would recommend. The ones I love is home canned ketchup. This is kind of darker, and some home canned tomato soup. It's separated a little bit. This one was a Campbell's copycat recipe that I found on Pinterest, and then ketchup I think was also from Pinterest. So this one's been good to have. I like to turn this into barbecue sauce. My kids prefer store-bought, like Heinz organic for their french fries or whatever, but turn this into barbecue sauce, or I put this on meatloaf. I have kids, so they're still kind of picky. Follow me on Instagram. You know I love having canned carrots. I grew up on canned vegetables, so for me, these don't bother me texture-wise. I love the discs for things like soups and stews, but my kids also just like to heat these up with salt. And then I did these for if I don't put carrots in like a roast or something, I can slip these in and they'll soak up some of that broth last minute, heat up, and taste like they were in the roast because they'll be like slowly cooked. So these ones are a cheat. These ones are something we use more frequently. A bad review. This was, I think they're dill coriander pickled carrots from the Bald Blue Book. For us, this was like a 0 out of 10. They just were not our favorite. I will never make these again. I've considered that giving them to pigs or chickens or something like that. It's just not something that I would make again. Same for these. These are glazed carrots and they're with orange juice and brown sugar. And to me, it's not worth it. They're so sweet. Like, it's almost like a dessert. I'd rather make some glazed carrots, you know, and some bacon grease with garlic and, you know, get a little char on them, give them some flavor, and have a little bit of firmness to them. For us, this wasn't it. I won't make these again. Are we using them? Yes. Are they our favorite? Absolutely not. So next, green beans. I love home canned green beans. You do have to have a lot of green beans to, you know, make enough jars. So that's something to consider, but this is something we like to do in wax beans and purple beans. So not a huge fan of frozen green beans. This is what we prefer, and we put up enough for usually a year and a half, just in case our next year isn't as great. If you grow hardneck varieties of garlic, you're gonna get garlic scapes. And so we pickled some this year, and this was another really good recipe that we've loved. They're more of like a garlicky, crunchy pickle. I love pickled garlic scapes. This one's a yes from us. Over to my fruits side of my canning pantry. And so next we have peaches. Love home canned peaches, but they can be pretty pricey to get if you're not growing them yourself. So that is something to take into consideration. Like, is organic actually easier and cheaper to buy? That's definitely something I would take into consideration. And then I also can up what's left of our peach syrup at the end of canning. Just you can add this to lemonade. There's no sense in letting it go to waste. And then peach pepper jelly jam. I love this too, over cream cheese with some crackers. Here I tried to make peach jam and it did not set right. It's just a hot mess. So what I do is I actually have a bunch of these, and I've just been dehydrating them into fruit leather for my kids, and they really like that flavor. And then I also do a lot of applesauce. I do plain cinnamon and strawberry, lots of applesauce. And one thing I don't like with canned apple slices, if I'm gonna make a pie, I'm gonna make a fresh apple pie. I've tried so many recipes with these, they're just mushy to me. I don't love this. I'm always gonna take our apples and just do applesauce or apple butter. Any more? Blueberries. I love canned blueberries. You just do them in water with some sugar maybe, or plain, and I like to make these into a syrup for like pancakes if we're ever low on our homemade maple syrup. And then some canned plums. I got these discounted. Again, they get very soft, so they're not our favorite, but it is nice to have more shelf-stable options for fruit. And this one is pineapple habanero pepper jelly. This one's 10 times better than the peach. This one's so good. This is a favorite over cream cheese. And then I have pineapple jelly. So this one's really set up. And I've used this with ketchup to make a homemade sweet and sour sauce for chicken. So very versatile. Down the shelves, these are home canned clementines. You can get these on sale in the winter usually, very, very cheap, and I can mine whole, like a whole, after you peel it, the whole fruit. And then I also do these in slices sometimes. Some people will dissolve these. There's a, like, it's not an acid, an enzyme that can remove this pith and stuff off of these, and they'll be like more like a mandarin oranges, because some people say that these get bitter. I've not had that experience, but obviously I think it depends on how ripe the fruit is and things like that. So I love having these on hand for my kids. I also have, these aren't exactly canned, but this is fruit leather, and then I wrapped these individually with parchment paper, and I have these sealed up. And this was just like a mixed berry one that I also keep down here for us to grab for easy snacks. For our garden strawberries, we get so many. I usually can them up multiple different ways. So how I can is I will do jam and jelly every other year. So on the other year, if I'm not doing jam and jelly, I will can up a bunch of honey strawberries. So this is strawberries with honey and water instead of using sugar. Love these. They can just be used as like an ice cream topping or literally anything that you'd use like a strawberry sauce for. And then I have strawberry lemonade concentrate. I also can up a bunch of this. This one is our favorite. I think we like strawberry lemonade concentrate more than just regular lemonade concentrate. This one is so good. I'm going to be making a ton of it this year. Every other year I do jam and jelly. So I do strawberry, this one's a jam, this one's a jelly, and then this is strawberry rhubarb. Not a favorite, not a favorite. Love this one. Just a classic strawberry jam. We live in the Midwest. There's a lot of wild berry plants, so we do a lot of foraging. I have mulberry jam. This one's my kids' favorite jam that we make, and the seeds aren't too bad in it, but with things like wild blackberries, I do use my food mill to turn them into a jelly instead. This one's my favorite. I love the flavor because wild blackberries and black raspberries are so tart that it's not overly sweet. So that's one of my favorites. And then I do raspberries from our garden, red raspberries, and I do leave the seeds in because I don't feel like they're as seedy as like a wild berry would be. So you can see this is a golden raspberry. This is wild berries that grow here. It is so seedy, just so seedy. So wild berries, from now on, I'm going to be milling them and getting as many seeds out as possible and doing a jelly versus a jam. So that's something to think about. Another ones we do is Christmas jam. So this one is cranberries, apples, and oranges, and I make this specifically for Christmas time. And then I also have wild violet jelly. And if you've ever made wild violet jelly, you know it has like a grape flavor, like a very mild floral grape flavor. So we like doing this one too. It's one of the only jellies that I do that has a lot of sugar in it. So that's that one. And dandelion jelly is also really fun to do, but it has a lot of sugar. So another thing to consider. I'm not proud of. But you can can up just berries too. I mean, I do this. These are from my mom. She gave them to us. But we also do this. You're running out of time at the end of the season and you just can up your berries. And these can be used in so many different ways, like muffins, or you can sweeten them and make syrup for pancakes or anything like that. You can also add this to ice cream base. That's usually what I do, is I just take these canned berries, and my ice cream base uses about a cup or two, depending on how much I make of berries if I'm making one. So this works out perfect for me. Very easy, very easy to can. Water, sugar, water bath can. The lemonade concentrate I talked about earlier, it's so pretty. I love the color of it. And if you get your lemons in like January, December, January, they're very, very cheap. So I got all mine on markdown. Canned them up. This does have sugar, but it's 1 pint to 2 to 3 pints of water and like a pint of ice, and you get an entire pitcher of lemonade. So it's great for summer. My kids can make it, and it's better than like a country time. And then we also do canned pears. These are great to have, and then pear sauce. And I canned these one up in these little tiny jars for baby food. Fruit though, guys. So this is our homemade, and then we canned it, apple cider. We love having this. It's not as flavorful as store-bought apple cider, but it is great to use up some of those apples and to have apple cider year round. Definitely not as fresh and not as flavorful as store-bought, you know, from an orchard apple cider or anything like that, but a good option too. Is probably, technically it's pasteurized because it's water bath can, so it's apple juice, but it's apple cider. This is grape juice from my mom. She has grapevines and made grape juice and gave us some. And then I make cranberry juice, and you can either use a steam juicer for this or just do the berries and water and your sweetener of choice method. Love having this, and I shared the other day how you can dehydrate the cranberries or you can even bake with them so they don't go to waste. So next I have canned turnips, and these are next to my canned beets, but they're not pickled. Everything from now on is going to be pickled. So these are some canned turnips. They do the best if you're roasting them in an oven. So like on a sheet pan with a fat and some seasoning so they can kind of crisp up. That's how they taste the best. And then I have the pretty red pickled beets and the pretty yellow ones that aren't as bright as they used to be because they've been down here for a couple years. But these are pickled beets. I canned these from my grandma. She did pass away a few months ago, so we're gonna have to end up forcing ourselves to like pickled beets. Also love a good homemade pickle. These are bread and butter pickles, but they don't taste like store-bought. So these have turmeric in them, onion, mustard seed, and a lot of apple cider vinegar. These ones are very, very good. I love them on a Cuban chicken sandwich. And then some dill pickle spears, and I also do little pickle like chips, but then at the end of the season when you have like the monster cucumbers, I like to slice them up and also can them with the same brine and then use those for fried pickles because you can put an entire one on a burger. This is all of my banana pepper goodies. This is mountain mustard. So you use mustard, banana peppers, and sugar and a bunch of things, and you cook it down. Not an approved recipe. Very, very delicious. I made some on a pork roast yesterday. It was so good. Pickled banana peppers for like pizzas, salads, things like that. And then I also do them in these tiny little jars because I'm actually the only one who likes them. So we're gonna make pizzas. This is what I'm gonna use for me, and then use something like this for like a Mississippi pot roast. And then I also did banana pepper relish. This is more of a sweet relish, so something you'd use on like hot dogs or something like that. This is okay. Definitely don't need to make a ton of it. Love doing these. For jalapenos, I like to just de-seed them and cut them into little discs, and then I can in water. I pressure can. You're supposed to peel the skin off. Technically, that's the approved recipe. This is what I do. You can do what you want in your own kitchen. And then this is cowboy. I also have cowboy candy, and I have a few recipes on my page for using this up. This is spicy and it's sweet and we love it. There's usually extra brine left over, so I do can that up as well. And you can use that to marinate a pork roast or something like that too. I also have some pickled, these are just like the little snacking peppers that we had left over. I pickled them, so same thing as what you would use, like a banana pepper, something like this. And I have pickled peas, 10 out of 10. I'm growing so many peas this year to make pickled peas. My two youngest children absolutely love these. They are delicious, and I use the exact same brine from those as I use on pickled asparagus. Another amazing one. My kids don't like pickles from like cucumber pickles, like dill pickles, but they love these, so I'm happy about that. Another thing we truly can is maple syrup. So we make this from our trees. I have videos showing you how to do that. This is like the last thing that I can. I also do a lot of dehydrating. That's down here. So maybe I'll make a separate video on that, of things that we like to dehydrate. But I hope this was helpful, and I hope you follow along to see more videos. We're just getting started with this. So thanks for stopping by.